To the Top End, Our Trip Across Australia by Roland Harvey. In the wilderness, Uncle Kevin used his commando training to take some people whitewater rafting. He said that here in the rainforest there are wombats, Tassie devils, rosellas. Some trees are so tall they could touch the clouds. Dad showed us the safe way to cross a log bridge. And Frankie spotted fish and no thylacines. In Bass Strait, it was very rough and very windy. And Penny spent a lot of time feeding the fish. And a dolphin stole our red ball. And Uncle Kev told us about giant sea creatures, and it was scary. But we don't believe him, do we? We saw dolphins and boats, we saw rocks and undies, and we saw seals and diving birds and giant squid. And we would have seen sharks, except they're scared of Uncle Kev. We saw a blue whale called Humpty, who has a calf, which we haven't named yet. Uncle Kev told stories of giant creatures living in the depths, but they're not true. Bogong Jat's hut is the noisiest place on the high plains. Creak, creak, whisper, whisper, shh, swoosh, thump, zzz, sigh, ah, roar, roar, splush. In a deep, dark, damp gully, a lyrebird sang 100 songs of different birds. Scratch! And on a distant mountainside, another answered. Ah, ah, screech, chirp, chirp, warble, warble. In the riverland, it was really hot paddling, so we visited a farm and bought oranges and peaches to eat on the riverbank. I learnt that in bird watching, it pays to look where you are going. On a jetty, we met a dog who had his own scarf and goggles. We saw emus, but they're not really this big. Dad and I saw 10 swamp hens nesting, 6 pelicans, 3 coots laying, 9 brolgas dancing, 2 black swans, 30 different ducks, and a yabby in a dead tree. We had fish and chips on the old wharf. While we paddled, Uncle Kev told us about the local bunyips. But we know Uncle Kev, he's only joking. In the Flinders Ranges, we saw sulphur-crested cockies and red-tailed black cockies and yellow-tailed black cockies who fly funny. It was hot and dry, except in the creek. We met some Japanese people from Japan and some American people from Canada and some German people from Carlton. We hired bikes to ride the very bumpy road up the gorge. Dad said to ride carefully or we'd get flat tires. Uncle Kev is a really clever rider. In the middle of the desert, we discovered a whole town underground. Uncle Kev climbed down an old shaft and came out in a strange room. We got to meet some of the locals. We went prospecting for rare black opals beside the road. Mum said there could be opals right here, or here, or here. No matter how hot it gets outside, it is always cool in here. At Kata Tjuta, Uncle Kev went for a test flight in his ultralight by doing a lap of the rocks. Unfortunately, he started showing off. Henry saw a mob of big red roos and a pack of dingoes, a gigabyte of budgies, and a slither of lizards, a circus of emus, and one lone eagle We played hide and seek around the rocks and got lost. Henry has such an imagination. He thinks one of the rocks look like Uncle Kev, only smaller. It was cool to see water in the gorge. A hawk swooped on his dinner far below, while we did bird dances with some kids, and Uncle Kev went for a swim to practice his survival skills. I didn't want to dance in front of my family. I went off to look for water monsters, but they're just a myth, I think. A soaring wedgetail watched us all from high above the cliffs. On the road to Ups and Downs station, we took Uncle Kev's shortcut. Luckily, some bush mechanics helped us out. Mr. Murphy rolled the ute again on Saturday night on a very bad stretch of road and had to walk home. Lucky Frankie gets to ride in Mr. Murphy's homemade aeroplane, while we had some of Mrs. Murphy's excellent homemade apple and yabby ice cream. Hooray! At last we are at the Great Big Barrier Reef. We saw the dolphins again. We saw clownfish, turtle, dugong, and shark. Some fish food on the surface and some on the bottom. Uncle Kev guided the tour boat using his new GPS. Deep in the Daintree rainforest wilderness, turquoise, swallow-tailed butterflies flickered about. A dragon scurries up a tree, and a butterfly alighted on a vine. Uncle Kev ate green ants. A brilliant azure kingfisher swooped low over the water. At Mystery Island, Uncle Kev showed us how to handle a racing cat. We met some ladies who paddled all the way from the mainland to stay on the island. We fed fish and snorkeled around the reef and sat on pure white sand. People came from town to enjoy the solitude. A pod of dolphins played around the ferry. Visiting boats anchor in the deeper water. 5:30 a.m. at Yellow Water, and it is already hot. We had a bird spotting competition. I saw 5 million birds, but Frankie won with 32 billion. We saw ducks fishing and fish ducking and water lilies and an eagle. We saw turtles and salties and magpie geese and spoonbills and a jabiru and brolgas and egrets and some Americans. Uncle Kev ran swim with the Crocs tours here, but closed down when he lost his keys 10 years ago. He's made a thing so he can look under the water. Oh, my lucky day. Keys. Yay, we made it from Tassie to the very tip of the top end. I kicked the ball to a brolga, and she headed it to an emu, but a kangaroo hit it to a turtle, and she swam it out to a shark, and he gave it to some dolphins, and they passed it to an uncle, and he kicked it right out of Australia, and it floated back to me. Then we all sat down and had a campfire feast. Wish you were here.